This is JT, and this is the JT podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you, everybody who has been listening to the podcast. The last two episodes, we are on the third episode of the podcast. It has been going great. I've been getting some great responses. So I want to continue to make sure that we are trending in the right direction on the podcast. So this is episode 3. It's entitled Believe in Yourself. But before we get too far into the podcast, this podcast is self-funded. I don't have any sponsors. So I own a recording studio downtown Jackson. JT Studios JXN. So make sure that you go to my website, www.mixedbyjt.com, and hit the studio tab, and you can book studio time. You can send tracks to get recorded, mixed, or you can get them mastered. I mix live, front of house, monitors, broadcast, whatever you need. I do consultant. So make sure that you plug in and get connected to those services, man. And you can also hit the support tab on my website if you want to support this podcast. So I got a lot of ways to support. You can always tell somebody about it, share it on your social media or whatever, because I'm giving good information and I'm making sure that I'm giving everybody a game. So this episode would be the first episode that we actually are going to have a video portion available. And I had a podcast available now on the Apple Podcast app. I have it available on YouTube. So regardless if you got an Apple, Android device, you would be able to listen to this podcast. So let's get into the podcast. So we're talking about believing in yourself. This music game is one of those type of industries where you gotta have some guts, man. If you don't believe in yourself, you might as well quit the business right now. If you're listening to this podcast and you're having any doubts, I want to help you really build up that level of confidence for you to go out there and take your craft to that next level. What do I mean by that next level? I consider, I guess, being semi-successful in this business is when you can get to the point where you can eat and you can make a living off your music. What do I mean by that? When you don't have to work a job, when you don't have to work a 9 to 5, 3 to 11, 11 to 6, well, 10 to 6, well, 2 to 10, whatever. However you make your money on a full-time job. My goal is to give people those skill sets to where they can sustain themselves, support themselves, their families, everything without having to go to a normal job. I'm all about the spirit of entrepreneurship. So if you don't believe in yourself in this business, it's not going to happen. And I will say it's hard to believe in yourself because you're going to have so many doubters, so many people telling you that you can't do it. In a perfect world, you would have a support system. You would have those friends who cheer you on and say, yeah, you can do it. You can go out there and you can kill it. But when it relates to this music business and this music industry, that's kind of not the case. Music is one of those things I tell people, it's like selling air. You have to be able to convince people you are not selling a physical product. So you have to convince people to buy a product that you may not necessarily to be able to touch or quantify, you have to present people a value to say, if you listen to my music, if you purchase my music, this is what it's going to do for you. It's easy to do that with a car. It's easy to do that with a house. But to do that with something that people can't see, it takes making people believe in that product. And it's going to start with you believing in yourself, you believing in your product, because this is what I see. I do these podcasts based off conversations that I have with artists all the time. And the number one thing that I see from artists is they get bored with their music extremely fast. What do I mean by that? About time they release a single, this song has been on their hard drive for so long that they're bored with it. But when you see established artists who are eating, they can perform a single that's a hit for about 30 years. That's what the people want to see. But the local artists, you can kind of see about time they release the music, it just kind of gets stale. And I've been there before where you be in the studio for so long working on this one record that about time it hit the airwaves in the first week, it's already old to you. It's already played out. So if it's old to you, what do you think the fans are going to think about it? You don't believe in yourself. And when you don't believe in yourself, other people aren't going to believe in you either. And that's an important fact, because you aren't going to have a support system in the beginning that necessarily pushes you, because people aren't really going to support you until you go out there and go win. And that's not a negative thing, because people, they want to be a part of a winning team. People want to be a part of a brand that's winning. If you are a large company and you want to sponsor somebody, you want to attach your name to a brand that's winning. I was watching a Formula One race this past weekend, and one thing that I noticed were the sponsorships. When people were standing on that podium, brands want their logo to be seen attached to that person, because that's how they sell products. So until your brand is growing and it's winning, you aren't going to get those sponsorships. You aren't going to get the fans and those people to invest in you, to put money into your product. So in this business, you have to be able to go out here and kill it and be able to win. And the reason why your family members aren't going to support you is not because they're haters. Your friends aren't haters. Your friends really care about you, and they can see you investing time, effort, and energy into something that may not necessarily work. What do I mean by that? To succeed in music is extremely rare. There are more professional athletes who are millionaires. It's very commonplace than have somebody or someone become a millionaire off their music. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi, and I tell people all the time, we can name, and before I even say this, it's going to be offensive, right? But we can name tons of athletes who have been able to come to Jackson through Jackson and have been able to be professional athletes, right? You can name tons of people I'm not going to name drop on this podcast. But when you ask people how many people from Jackson, Mississippi has been able to come kill it on his music side, it's only one or two names are going to come up max. You know, they're trying to put the entire state of Mississippi in one category, which they don't put the whole state of Georgia in one category. They don't put New York State in one category. They don't put California in one category. But when it relates to being a successful artist, a musician in Jackson, Mississippi, the success rate is so rare that people have to expand it out to the entire state, and it's still rare. So when people are getting you to quit music, they really want you to invest into something else that has a more likely success rate. I'm going to break the numbers down for you. And when I break the numbers down for you, it's going to make more sense to why you aren't succeeding in music, right? So people want you to quit music and people want you to go to college, right? But you are expected, the formula for college, just say if a degree costs $60,000 over 4 years, just say $20,000 a year, just say 60 to 80 grand for a degree. We all know that it's going to cost a whole lot more than that, but these are just the numbers for the sake of this podcast. So you are expected to go to school for 4 years, spend about $80,000 on a degree, and you are expected, based off whatever you spend on your degree, that's how much you're supposed to make per year. So hypothetically, over a period of 4 years, you're spending 60 grand into a degree that's supposed to make you $60,000 a year. And I say that because it's shown that most people are making $40,000 on the high end. The average income off a degree now is like $32,000 a year. So you are spending $60,000 to $80,000 to make $32,000 a year. Just say 40 max, right? $40,000 for 40 years. 1.6 million in 40 years average career. Those are the numbers. That's not up for debate. So you're spending $40,000 over 4 years to make 40 grand of income for the rest of your life. How many artists you know out there who are spending 15 to 20 grand on their music? It's not a lot of people doing it. So I say that to say this and iterate this point. If you aren't willing to invest real money into your music, how can you make real money off of your music? And I can attest to this. I always bring this up and I always allude to 2020 and my degree, not my degree, but my career going back to 2016. When I realized that I really wanted to be serious about what I was doing, I believed that I had the talent. I believed that I had the charisma. And I just said, you know what? I just got to make moves. So one of the first things that I did was I took $1,000 within a 30-day time span, start to put it into myself. When I was buying gear, my formula, okay, 1,000 to 1,200 a month. That's like 14 grand a year minimum to be a audio engineer. In 4 years, that's about a $60,000 investment to be an audio engineer. If you go to audio engineering school, you're going to spend $60,000 to $80,000 to be an audio engineer. just to be an engineer. So regardless of what path you take in this music game, you can see that the people who are making money in music are spending real money. So it shouldn't be a conflict between artists and audio engineers, period, because the audio engineers, trust me, are spending the money. If you are an artist, are you making the same sacrifices that the audio engineers are making to make money on a consistent basis? Because in this music game, I will tell you, there is more than one way to make money. You don't have to be an artist to make money. You don't have to be in front of the camera to make money. You can be a manager. It's probably over 10 different types of managers. You have road managers. You have business managers. You have people who manage everything, every step of the way for artists. So it's tons of options. But if you put the investment into this music, I'm telling you, this music can really take off. This music can really pay off. So if you are artists in this game, you are the personality, you are the face of the franchise, but you have to realize that it's no shortcuts to this game. So what your family members or closest friends are telling you, you think they're hating on you, but they're giving you a word of wisdom. They're saying invest your time, effort into energy into something that's more likely that it's going to pay you. Because even if you invest $60,000 in at 60 to 80 grand over 4 years, it's no guarantee that this thing is just going to haphazardly work. Because just looking at the numbers, I think it's 80% of Americans have jobs. I think 20% of Americans who are working own their own business. And out of that 20%, only 20% out of that 20% actually have employees and actually legitimately own businesses. So that's what I'm saying. You can't be playing around with this thing. And the way that the numbers look as an artist, I'm not saying this to discourage people. I'm not telling this for people to really get out the game. But for face value, it looks like the odds are stacked against you. It just looks and feels that way. And when you look at the numbers, that's partially true. But you have to know about the Pareto principle and things of that nature. And you have to know that the cream is always going to rise to the top. It is what it is. So when it relates to believing in yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't have the resolve, you will not be able to be a beast at this thing, because people are going to tell you to quit. Go out and get a job. Stay on that 9 to 5. And it's a reason, but if you can apply those same principles you do on that 9 to 5 behind your music, I'm telling you, the 9 to 5 is successful for a reason. And you, as a musician, if you have the talent, you can be successful. Trust me. So this is how 9 to 5s are successful. It's all about faith. How much faith do you have in yourself? When you go to your 9 to 5, when you're there, orientation, first thing that they're going to do, or in an interview or whatever, they are going to give you information about the company. They're going to tell you background info. This is how the company was founded. This is how the company was started. This is the vision of the company. This is the mission statement. This is what the company is all about. And these are the goals. And they get you to rally behind those goals. That's the secret. So I'm talking about things like this on this podcast, and it may seem like some things are reoccurring, some themes are reoccurring from episode to episode, right? Because I'm going to give you the game every episode, and I have to get that repetition in your head like success leaves clues. So you, as an artist, you have to have a mission statement. You have to know that you're supposed to be here. If you ever second guess yourself, if you don't have the confidence, when you come in front of the fans, people can really see through that because they're going to test you. One of the things that I don't see going on now is a lot of people doing open mics or a lot of people competing in talent shows of that nature, but it's starting to come back. I remember when I was growing up and Apollo was just real big, like Showtime at the Apollo. That was when Steve Harvey was on there, Kiki Shepard. I'm talking about legendary when it was just blowing up all in Mississippi. And when people went to Apollo, the cool thing, the reason why people watch Showtime at the Apollo, this is the secret sauce, was you watch Showtime at the Apollo every week to see who was going to get booed off stage that week. And it's comical thinking about it, but when you realize like these were actual people who went out there to show their talent, put their heart in their performance, and a lot of those people actually were pretty good. And even though these people were pretty good, they they got booed off stage. And forgive me if you are listening to this podcast and you have ever got booed off stage. I'm not making fun of you, but the thing is that we did the same thing except worse in Mississippi because we didn't have access really to Showtime at the Apollo because we're from Jackson, Mississippi. New Harlem is way up there, right? In New York. So when we were at talent shows, we just had the mentality that we were just going to boo everybody, regardless if they were good or not. So you can be uber talented. You can be one of the greatest up and coming artists or whatever. And you know what? You can still get booed off stage. The reason why is people just love to joan. People love to crack jokes. People love to roast. People like to make fun of people. Like people are naturally, I don't want to use the word bullies. You know, I don't know if that was bullying, booing somebody off stage back then. Because I mean, some people like left off stage crying. It's horrible. I wouldn't recommend anybody do that now. I wouldn't do that now. I have a lot of respect for music now. But man, like people just for whatever reason, it's just human nature to be mean to people. So when you are getting rejected, most of it may not be because of you. It could just be people just for whatever reason may think that it's fun just to tell you to your face as an artist that you suck. They don't rock with the music or whatever, to say it in a mean way. Some people just get a kick out of that. So you can't let rejection, just because people didn't listen to your record, right? I got to say this point, and I got to deliver it like this. When you release a record and you told somebody, check out your single, and they didn't check out your single, you can't look at it as if you were a total failure. If you are an artist and you put out a single and it don't get 1 million streams in 1 week, you hadn't did not one show. I talked about last podcast, last episode 2. I explained the difference between a warm market and a cold market. You hadn't did no shows. You hadn't shook anybody's hand. You hadn't passed out flyers. You hadn't took the time to go out there to the clubs and be social. You hadn't showed up early, talked to the DJs. You hadn't helped the DJ unload their speakers. I don't know. Offered to take the trash out at the club. Offer to clean the venue. I mean, I'm just saying. I heard a story that Prince was a janitor in a studio before they get studio time. So if you want your record spun in a club, maybe that's an angle. Help clean up the club or the venue after the show. Trust me, people will appreciate you very much and you will get noticed. So sometimes your music, hear me when I say this, your music may not be taken off. It may not be because of you. It may be because people really may just need you to be that person in that moment where they release whatever anger and frustration they have and just say mean things and boo you. I guess you may just be a punching bag at the moment. So don't look at that as being discouraged in quitting your music career. Like I said, if you know without a shadow of a doubt in your mind that you're supposed to be here, you can overcome that. And you have to be willing to do what most people aren't willing to do. Most people aren't willing to really go out there and deal with the rejection. Most people want to be popular. Most people want to fit in with the in crowd. That's why Facebook is so popular. Like, I had a conversation with somebody earlier talking about how different my space used to be, a whole different breed. And the reason why Facebook is so successful because of the like button, right? They aren't showing your information to people, period, who aren't interested in liking your status. That's just kind of like the way it works. People want to be fed more likes. People want to feel popular. So you have to be willing to go against the grain, and you have to be willing to do what people aren't willing to do. Most people, I mentioned, can't deal with the rejection. Most people can't deal with the no's. Most people aren't investing 12 to 15K a year into their music. They just weren't doing that. So you really have to have that level of resolve that a lot of people don't have. And that's one thing that can't be taught. I can teach somebody, and I have taught people how to come in a studio and record. I've been able to teach people how to count bars. I've been able to teach people what a bar was. I've been able to work with artists, put together a stellar product because that's what I do. But one thing that I have never been able to teach, and I don't even think that it can be taught, is how do you teach a person how to have confidence and believe in themselves? And that's a very deep topic to think about because that's more so something that's philosophically buried deep within a person. And I don't even think that it's a matter of mental health or mental health issue because most people who believe in themselves are considered crazy. A lot of people who believe in themselves without a shadow of a doubt are considered narcissists. So, what I'm saying is, in this game, when you are really serious, a lot of people may not take you serious. A lot of people are going to say that you're crazy. A lot of people aren't understanding why are you putting all this money into your music. People are going to say that you're throwing money away into your music when it's really not taking off immediately. When you can throw away 15, 20 grand on a degree for 4 or 5 years before you even see one penny, not even including if you go get your master's, not even including if you go get your doctorate. It's not a problem then because people believe in that. Why? Because 80% of people in America who are in the workforce have jobs. 20% of only 20% of people who are in the workforce work for themselves. Only I think about 20% of those have employees working for them. My numbers may be off, but it's something like that, right? So when they know that it's a 80 percentile chance, if you get a degree, you got like a 95% chance. Think unemployment is at 4% right now. So you have a 96% chance of getting a job, but you got less than a 1% chance of getting this music thing popping. So I may say this every podcast episode. People are going to choose the path of least resistance. So a lot of people are going to choose that job all day, every day, instead of their music all day, every day. Um, One of the things that I hear people say is a lot of artists say that they aren't going to sign a deal. And I tell artists who say they aren't going to sign a deal, this may be another controversial statement. Oh, you won't sign a deal with a record company, but you sign a deal with your job. People don't realize, but you sign contracts every day. When you go to the store and purchase a product, it's a contract. They have a return policy. When you buy an iPhone, it's a contract. They have an end user license agreement or something like that. So you're signing contracts every day. You believe in your phone, so you'll sign a contract without question to get that phone. You believe in your job, so you'll sign a contract without question to work that job. Not in not limited to being an at-will employee where the employer already says like, "Hey, we can fire you at any time." But I'm going to ask this question. Do you believe in yourself to be your own boss? Nobody is going to put a gun to your head and make you go in the booth and record that verse. It's just not going to happen. Nobody is going to force you to go out there and hustle and get your music in front of the fans. Nobody is going to force you do nobody is going to force you to do anything against your will. Do you have enough faith? Do you have enough belief in yourself? Is your belief system strong enough to encourage yourself when nobody else is? Do you believe in yourself to where if somebody say, "Man, this music sucks," can you keep going and do your music? It was two major artists. One was a female, one was a male that dropped music recently. And the general consensus, I'm not going to say general consensus because personally, I like the records. I love all types of music. But you had people coming out the woodwork and saying that their music sucked. So everybody isn't going to like your music. It's just not going to happen. Do you have enough self-esteem where you don't have to be accepted by everybody? You don't have to be a crybaby every time somebody doesn't like your music. If you're an artist out there, have you dropped a record this year? When was the last time you dropped a record? When was the last time you did a show? If you got 3 albums out there, I own the studio. I want to get studio business. I like when artists come to the studio. That's one of the ways that I make my money. That's not every way that I make my money. I mix live shows all the time. Get where I'm getting it right. So if you have 3 albums deep, you got music out there. It may not be time necessarily to come to the studio and record more music that you may not necessarily release, right? You can hire me as a live audio engineer. I can help you put your show together. You can hire me to get your technical rider together. You can hire me to help you work on your hospitality rider. If you are an artist and you don't know what any of these terms mean, you got 3 records out there. You probably need to be looking into some of those terms like, okay, I need to begin some of these live shows going, because you have to realize is that this is a personal responsibility thing. So when I'm talking about believing in yourself, I'm talking about being your own boss. Can you really, do you have the discipline? Do you have the system and a set of beliefs where you can be that person ultimately that's going to take care of you? Can you pull yourself out of that pit? If you are an entrepreneur, there's no straight line, or there is no straight path to success. It's going to be up and down like the stock market. Do you have a buy high and sell low mentality, or do you have a buy low, sell high mentality? What do I mean by that? When you're down and out, do you have the faith? Do you have the confidence to invest in yourself when everybody is writing you off? Because the people who invest on the low end, those are the people who are going to get paid on the high end. When it's not looking like it's going to pop, when everybody can't see your vision, do you believe in yourself enough to see your vision. This music, this game is not easy. Um, it's going to be a lot of heartache. It's going to be a lot of pain. You're going to lose friends along the way. You may even lose some family members along the way. So when you get into these situations, do you believe in yourself enough to keep going? I keep going back to the analogy of getting a degree. When you're in college, um, you have content, you have material on a weekly basis. Where on a weekly basis, you have assignments, you have things to complete, and they have to be done on a weekly basis. Your assignments have to be turned in on time. With this music stuff, there are things that have to be done on a weekly basis. I own a studio, I'm an entrepreneur. I have goals that I have to accomplish on a weekly basis, or this business does not work. What I'm doing now, I'm doing this podcast on a weekly basis. And regardless of how I'm feeling, I have to put myself in this mindset, and an episode has to be recorded. That's a belief system. When you're in school, assignments to do on a weekly basis. You got to get the grades. You got to perform. You got to do the work. That's why I believe employers look for someone who has a college degree, not because of the knowledge, but they have the mindset where they know that, hey, I know what it means to accomplish these goals. Put that mindset into your music, put that belief system into your music and say, like, hey, what are goals that I can accomplish week to week? What tasks do I have to accomplish from week to week? Do not overburden yourself, because it's easy to chase too many rabbits at one time. What is one thing that you can do on a weekly basis to take your craft to the next level? Give yourself an assignment that's due at the end of the week. Just say, I have to do one thing. This is assignment. I have to do it. Boom. You can give yourself homework. You can give yourself projects. You can give yourself things to work on, because what ends up happening, this is why people end up getting scared, because they get scared because it looks like so many things are in front of them. This music industry is so vast. It just looks like it's so much to get accomplished that it will never get accomplished. So what you do, you break it down into smaller bits and pieces and say, hey, I can't eat the elephant all at one time. I'm going to break it down into servings. I'm going to break it down into portions. It's a Eating the elephant is a figure of speech. Not to go on a trip, but I actually did the research and I Googled this. And from what I read, it'll take, I think, one man over 20 something odd years to eat an elephant. If you ate elephant 3 meals a day for like 25 years straight, 26 years. I don't know. That's how long it'll take to eat an elephant. But believing, double check that fact. I don't know. Maybe I'll include a link or some with this podcast. I don't know how long it'll take to eat an elephant. And that's just a metaphor to speak on consistency, because I did the research and see what does elephant meat taste like. And from what I researched, I don't know who these people, because I could have swore an elephant was an endangered species, so they shouldn't be out there eating elephant. But they said that it doesn't taste good. It's not pleasurable. It's tough. It has a wild taste. It's not anything that you want to eat. So if you want to get your belief system 100% locked in, it starts on a daily and a weekly basis. And I'll take on a daily basis out and I'll just put weekly. Have one thing that you can do each week that you can accomplish to get closer to your goal. If you work a 9 to 5 or whatever, and you may be tired some days, it may be some days where you may miss. So doing things on a weekly basis gives you a little bit more lead time. So find one thing that you can do within a period of a week. That's the secret. That's how you're going to succeed. That's how you're going to get that belief system right, because a lot of people don't realize that it's a muscle. Success is a muscle. Believing in yourself is a muscle. You have to work it. I'm in the gym 6 days a week. This is why. It's not necessarily because I want to be in better shape. I go to the gym for meditation, and it's just one big metaphor of my life when I have to remind myself, if I want to see results, I have to do the consistent work. So I got to go hard in my business like I go hard in the gym. You got to go hard at this music like somebody would go in the gym in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It's going to tell the story. You have to kind of see yourself far into the future, and you have to think about yourself, not who you are right now. Think about yourself in who you want to be next year, 10 years from now, 5 years from now. 5 years from now, do you still want to be working at your job? Do you see yourself return from there, or do you just see, I got bills and I need to work? And I'm not knocking jobs. Nothing wrong with jobs. It's honorable having a job, but I'm telling you how to get about your job. And this is the most important podcast because nobody else is showing you how to do that. So to believe in yourself, I go back and reiterate these points. You have to know that you're supposed to be here. You have to be able to do what most people aren't willing to do. You have to believe in yourself enough to invest in yourself. You can't be encouraged by the no's. And this is the last point that I will end with is don't try to be like everyone else. Know who you are and know what's uniquely you. If you're a producer, you don't have to make type beats. You just don't. If you are an artist, you don't have to try to sound like anybody that's out right now, because there are there are already enough Drakes out there. There are already enough Kanye's out there. There are already enough Beyonce's, Rihanna's, or whoever out there, Lady Gaga's. Man, a lot of well, it's only one Fantasia, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's already enough of those out there. It's only one of those type of people, and it's only one you. So you have to know who you are as an artist. You have to know who you are as a person. You have to know who you are as an audio engineer. Me as an audio engineer, I can tell if I engineered a record or not because my mixes just have a certain sound. My mixes have always had a certain sound. I can listen to a mix that I did back in '04, '05. I'm a better audio engineer now, but my mixes, I can tell if I mixed that record, even if I forgot that I mixed it, because it has a certain sound, because my sound is uniquely me. I reference records. I reference a lot of material. I have a list of favorite engineers. I have a whole playlist on Apple Music of just references. So before I drop a mix, I make sure, oh yeah, it stands up to the competition, this, that, and the other. But I also make sure that my sound when I engineer is uniquely me. When I mix live, a lot of people try to say I want that other person to mix like JT. Man, when JT mixes, it just sounds like this. But when this other person mix, it just sounds like this. And a lot of other people's mixes, to be honest with you, can sound exactly the same because they don't get this concept. When I mix, I'm not mixing to sound like anyone else. My mixes reflect who I am. My mixes reflect where I'm from. My art reflects where I'm from. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. Um, I've traveled in other cities have influenced my mix, but my mix is a combination of me, who I am, and all of those elements put together in my mix. My mix is uniquely me. And my sound, even going back to when I first started mixing and I didn't know what I was doing, I know what my sound is. If you are an artist, you have to know what your sound is. If you are a producer, you have to know what your sound is. Um, if you are however you are involved in the industry, you have to know what your sound is. You can't be trying to be like the next man because I will tell you, you have to realize when you look in the mirror, are you happy with yourself? You know who you are and just be the best version of yourself that you want to be. That's the secret. And believing in yourself is ultimately just being yourself, not worried about what others think. We do music, of course. We want to do music for the masses. Yes, we want everybody to like our music, and I appreciate everybody who rocks with my music, with my live mixes, studio mixes, or whatever. Feedback has been great, and I love when my music has a positive influence on people. When people don't like my music, it kind of hits me right here because ultimately I want to please people. I want to really use this as art to communicate with people. But at the end of the day, I know what my sound is. So I don't compromise my sound. I don't compromise who I am. Yes, I make adjustments, I make leeway, but at the end of the day, it still has to sound a certain way. You, as an artist, are you going to compromise your sound to try to fit in? or are you going to be uniquely you? Engineers, are you going to compromise your sound? Do you even know what your sound is? That's something to think about in a podcast. So I just want to use my platform. I just want to use my voice. I want to use this as an opportunity to encourage everyone. I'm in a studio late at night, burning the midnight oil. Like it's literally like after 1 a.m. and I'm in the studio making this podcast. And I'm making this podcast not just to be cool, but I do this podcast to really encourage people. So I want to give you a word of encouragement if you are in a place where you feel that you may be stuck as an artist, as a musician, or as an engineer. I just want to encourage you to keep pushing, to keep doing your music, to keep believing in yourself. Everybody may not make it, and that's fine because it's different levels. Different levels to it. Just because you don't have a million people listening to your music doesn't mean that you didn't make it. Just because you may work a full-time job and do music outside of your job, that doesn't mean that you didn't make it, because if you're being uniquely you and you're doing your art, in my opinion, you are successful. In the eyes of people who are listening to your music, you're successful. That's a unique record. That's a unique experience that people would not have had otherwise. When you're skilled in this business, when you put your all into your music, that's really what the fans really want. So I just want to encourage everybody who is listening to this podcast on whatever form, if you're watching the videos, whatever. I just want to encourage you to keep pushing. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm not going to quit, man. This is what I love to do. If you uniquely love to do music, trust me, do not quit. It's going to be harder to quit music if you really love this. If you really love music, it's going to be harder to quit than keep going and keep doing it, because once you love music, you know for a fact that this is who you are. This is what you're supposed to do. And I just want to tell everybody, believe in yourself. You got this. So that concludes the end of this podcast. I hope that everybody got something out of it. Look, if you are not following me on Instagram, make sure that you follow me on Instagram. I'm everywhere at Mixed by JT. Website www.mixedbyjt.com. Make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. And if you want to support the podcast on my website, it's a support link, and that will send you through PayPal to contribute to the podcast. So everybody who is listening, everybody who is a part, thank you for listening to this podcast. If you hadn't went back to the older episodes, well, they're not old, I would just say previous episodes, go back and listen to those episodes, because I'm telling you, this is going to be good and it's only going to get better. But I will talk to you later, and I will see you on the next podcast.